Hey everyone, welcome to the Doula Dive. I'm your host, Kate Pangos, and today on the podcast we have Payton Fischer, who is a wonderful mom to two beautiful children who are 4.5 and 2.5 years old. And we had so many wonderful discussions about birth. She is so passionate about the topic, so it was so much fun chatting with her today. On this episode, we chatted about her two pregnancies and deliveries in two different countries, Germany and then France. We chatted about how she was able to put together a support team around her in the different places that she was giving birth. And finally, we talked about her amazing water births with both of her children. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast today. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or requests for future videos, please let me know in the comment section. I truly, truly love educating you all on all of these topics so that you can feel so confident going into your own births. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hi, Payton. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on today to chat.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I love talking all things birth, so I can't wait.
Yes, I'm so excited. You have so many good little tidbits to share with everyone, and I can't wait for them to hear. So why don't we just start with you telling the listeners a little bit about yourself and your family, where you guys are at right now, and then we can jump into pregnancy, birth, all those great things.
Yes, perfect. So my name is Payton, and I live overseas right now, currently in Spain. And we have two little kids, 4 years old and 2 years old.
Yeah.
And we've been living overseas now for 7 seasons, which is so crazy because I still feel like it's every year so new.
Yes.
But yeah, we live in Spain, and we're just enjoying the journey with our babies.
I love that. And you guys have been in Spain. This is your first year in Spain, or you've been there for longer?
No, we've been, Luke played for Gran Canaria, Spain, the team in Gran Canaria for 2 years when we first moved overseas before we had babies. And that's where I got pregnant. And then he played for half of the season in Sevilla, Real Betis. And then now we're in Burgos. So.
Oh, amazing. So you guys have been all over the place in Spain.
Yes, a little bit all over the map. So.
Yeah, I love that. And what do you have a favorite, or do you kind of like them all?
I love them all, especially for every chapter that we've been in, like living in Gran Canaria is an island. It's beautiful. That was magical. And we were so excited when we found out we were pregnant there. And then Sevilla's incredible. Have you ever been to Sevilla?
Yes. I traveled there. Actually, when we were playing in Gran Canaria, our first year, I went to Sevilla for a game because they were in the same league. Because Sevilla's in a lower league right now, right? Not ACB.
Last season they were in ACB, but they got relegated. And so it was such a difficult chapter because we were actually living in France, and Sevilla was trying to get new players to stay in the league. And so Luke actually changed teams mid-season. But literally as soon as we got to Sevilla, he had an injury and had to have surgery. So
oh my gosh,
it was so sad. But if you had to be injured anywhere, Sevilla is not a bad place to be. And so it was unfortunate because he didn't play much. The surgery kind of had him out for a couple of months, and we were only there for the last half. So that was a huge bummer, but we loved Sevilla, and unfortunately they got relegated. So now that they're in the second division.
So let's talk a little bit about your first pregnancy. You can kind of just share how that went, where you were at the time. Your prenatal care, I know it was probably in a few different places. So talk a little bit about that and the differences there, and just share that with our listeners.
Perfect. So when we were in Gran Canaria, we found out I was pregnant, and it was a little bit of a surprise. I mean, we know how babies are made, but it happened a lot sooner than we thought it would happen. And so we were so excited though. And then unfortunately, Luke had an injury. So Luke is my husband, and it kind of left the end of the season really up in the air. And he ended up having to have surgery. So it was just kind of this crazy time where I was pregnant. I was so sick. Like I threw up every single day for 20 weeks. And people kept telling me, once you hit 12 weeks, you're going to feel so much better. And for me, that was just not the case. It was so hard. And I just remember being so sick. And so he had to have surgery in Madrid at the end of the season.
Okay.
And we basically knew it was a season ending surgery. So I was like so sick. I remember like being in the hospital and being like, I'm about to puke, So it was
Oh
just
my
kind of
gosh.
a lot of chaos, but we
Yeah.
were still just so thrilled and so excited. And then after his surgery, the team was like, okay, you can go home. Like you're not gonna play again this year. So we went home and I decided to go through an OBGYN care that
Okay.
my sister and my sister-in-law had used.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so blessed to be able to be in the room when my sister and sister-in-law gave birth. And so
Yeah, it's
I
amazing.
yes, it was so amazing. And I already loved being around birth. I loved their OBGYN. She was so awesome.
Okay.
And so I decided to go through my prenatal care with her, even though I knew I would be delivering somewhere else in the world.
Yes.
This lifestyle is never boring, as
Never
you know.
boring.
You can't predict much. And
No.
I always say God has such a sense of humor because I was such a planner and love to plan. And this lifestyle just kind of throws your plans out the window.
Yes.
So during my pregnancy, again, super sick and just not feeling so great. And also having a bit of anxiety about where am I going to deliver? And like, where is he going to sign, especially coming off of an injury? So things were just kind of overwhelming. And so I decided to reach out to this woman in my hometown who was a doula. And basically, I just wanted more knowledge and more information.
Yes.
I always loved birth. And I even before I got pregnant, I've always dreamed of being a mother. And I always felt I had a low pain tolerance. And so I was very fearful about giving birth.
Okay.
And I really think that fear kind of translated into an interest. And so at the beginning of my pregnancy, I would listen to podcasts, birth stories, and just started hearing stories from women who had different births than what I had seen or what I knew about, basically. So meeting with this doula, I was like, I know you can't be there with me at the birth. I don't even know where in the world that birth will be. It's crazy, but I wanted her to kind of teach me about, the physiological birth, and just, tips and tricks for preparing to have like the birth that you want.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good experience.
And how did you how did you know about her? Did you know about doulas before? How did you learn what a doula was and decide to reach out to her?
Yeah. So through the podcast that I would listen to, I started hearing about doulas.
Okay.
And this woman is she's a mother of someone I used to dance with when I was young. And so we were like friends on Facebook, and I would see some of her posts and, just always showing women and babies. And I was just fascinated. So she actually ran into my mom at the grocery store over the summer. And my mom was like, oh, Payton has talked about, she's going to give birth. She's anxious, blah, blah, blah. And so it just kind of happened that we connected. And so, yeah, it was awesome. And
meant to be for sure.
Oh yeah. And she taught us about hypnobirthing. I mean, everything. We went over so much information. And so finally, when I was nearing the end of summer, I was due October 4th. And it was August at this point, and we didn't know where he was going to sign. And so finally he signed in Germany. And we went to Germany when I was 34 weeks pregnant. So I was going to be basically starting over with a whole new care team. I had no idea. I was just going to show up and find someone and hopefully use the resources from the team to figure out what to do. Because as a first time mom, especially, I didn't really know, what to do.
Yeah.
So we got to Germany, and luckily there was a wife. It was kind of like a manager of the team. His wife worked with the other wives, if they were pregnant, and kind of told them their options.
I love that.
Yeah, she was very helpful, extremely helpful. And there were 2 hospitals, and she basically said one of the hospitals is more for high risk, more medical. And then the other hospital is more holistically minded and has tubs for giving birth if you want that.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of something that I wanted. Like I had told Luke and I said, I really would love to try to have a water birth. So that kind of made my mind up. And so decided on that hospital and went along with my pregnancy. My appointments were not at the hospital though. I actually had never even really been to that hospital before I gave birth. So it's it's so crazy in this lifestyle because I kind of was just like, whatever happens, happens, I guess. And so, it's funny. I looking back now, I'm like, wow, I was really just like, we're going to do the dang thing. But my appointments were with an OBGYN offsite that did not deliver or would not deliver my baby. I was basically just going to deliver with whoever was on the job. Exactly. And so,
and you got to meet some of those doctors or you didn't?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it was totally separate. Okay.
Yeah, totally
Interesting.
separate. It was very interesting. I will say that was something different and something that I didn't even understand until I gave birth. I would try to communicate the best I could. And I was like, do you deliver the babies? Will you be there? Like, if I want to be induced, can you be my doctor? And she was just like, I still to this day don't really know if she like delivers at the hospital or not, or if she was just completely separate and a partner to the hospital.
Did they speak English?
Yeah, I feel like in Germany, a lot of people did speak English, but as everywhere, some more than others. So sometimes, there would be a little bit of a language barrier, but not always. So that was nice.
Yeah.
And so when I neared the end of my pregnancy, my mom came and I'm super close with my mom. So I knew I wanted her to be in the room with me. And so, we got to 40 weeks and I thought I think first time moms especially always think they're going to go early. So for weeks at that point, I was like, it's going to happen, And so got to 40 weeks. And then I think the anxiety sort of started setting in where I want Luke to be present and his basketball schedule, he has an away game coming up. So that feeling is hard because you want to just be so present in your body and just give your body time. But then, the guys don't really they could be hours away, how it is. So
they don't just get to wait around and wait for the baby to get there. I know.
Baby watch looks a little different for them. So
yes,
I was grateful that my mom was with me, but I also started thinking should I just be induced? Because I want him to be there and that matters more to me. That's one of my key priorities in this birth.
Yeah.
And so one thing I am grateful for is Germany is very holistically minded with birth.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, which is amazing.
Yeah. So I honestly feel like in the time I was so just what's going on? Where in the world is this baby going to be born? And there's this song lyric that says something like my plans, but his path. And my faith is something that I held on to during the pregnancy and just positive affirmations of the birth that I wanted.
Yes.
But of course, in this moment, I was like, I think maybe I should be induced because, I just want him to be there.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to this OBGYN at my appointment offsite because once you hit a certain point in Germany, you basically go every other day for a non-stress test for the baby.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was there, started going every other day. But at one point I asked her, I was like, do you think I could be induced, my husband's basketball game? He has one coming up. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, we don't really love to induce here before 41 weeks. And I just don't think that hospital is going to want to do it. And especially because everything looks good with the baby. They don't really do that. And she said, but if you want, you can go into an appointment at that hospital on the 10th. So at this point I was 40 plus 5. And when they checked me, I decided to be checked. I was like, can you check me? And she's like, sure, why not? And she was like, yeah, you're not really dilated at all. And so that's, I think, where I was like, okay, maybe I should just be induced at this point.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can head to the hospital in the morning and see what they say, basically. So I kind of had an appointment scheduled to discuss the possibility of being induced.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like in that the pressure was taken off me in a way, because I was like, okay, like tomorrow. And so it's funny that that night I actually went into labor.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's crazy. And so we were playing a card game at the table. It was like 9 p.m. and we're playing cards, my mom and Luke and I, and I'm getting these contractions beginning. And I'm like, I think they're for sure going to induce me tomorrow, because if I'm having these contractions, like they're going to be like, okay, she's ready. Let's induce her. And like, little did I know, like baby was coming.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I think this is a good sign. And so we're playing cards, and I think because we knew things were beginning, we were a little excited. So we stayed up a little later, and finally around like 11 or 12, we were like, okay, we need to go to bed. We need to get rest. Alarms are set. Like, we're going in the morning. And I was just going to try to like sleep through some of the contractions. Everyone was going to bed. And I was just like, this is a little too intense for me to sleep right now. So I told Luke, okay, I'm going to go in the bath and like labor in the tub and just relax in there. I had my music on and it was dimly lit, the vibes were good. And I started just like laboring in the water. And at first I was like tracking, with like a timer, how close together the contractions were. And finally I was just like, okay, I'm done doing that. I'm just going to like lay here and rest.
Yeah.
And, at some point you get kind of like moany and you're just kind of like in the zone in labor land. And my mom actually comes in and she's like, I think we need to go to the hospital. Like you are moaning, like we need to go. And I was like, okay. And I always thought like I have a low pain tolerance. So I thought surely, I said, surely I think I need the epidural, because like I must not be very far along. And so my mom's waking up Luke and like, we need to go. And this is like the middle of the night. And so they're kind of packing the car. And I remember I set out a shirt for Luke because he was wearing like a Marvel superhero shirt. And I was like, I don't know if you should meet our daughter in like a Marvel shirt, And so he's packing the car and we're leaving, and come to find out he's in the Marvel shirt. So this is what you're meeting our daughter in. Okay, we're superheroes. We got it.
Oh, I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was so funny. We still joke about it. I'm like, you couldn't just put the shirt on that I wanted you to wear. You had to wear the Marvel shirt. But I love Marvel, so that's okay. But I remember being in the car. It was kind of a blur because things had gotten pretty intense, and he was like speeding to the hospital. And we lived about 20 minutes from the hospital. And I think we made it there in like 10 because he was just like flying, and it was the middle of the night.
Baby's not going to be born in the car.
Yeah, he was stressed. And my mom was like, when she came in the bathroom, she's like, oh my gosh, like this baby's close to coming. Like we need to hurry. Yeah. And so I think we were all in kind of like rushing mode. And so when we got there, first we're waiting for a little bit because it seemed like it was a busy night, Yeah. And so I'm just in this room and I'm like squeezing a stress ball, and I'm just like so uncomfortable because I'm like sitting in a chair like this, I'm just like trying to get through the contractions, and I want to go in whatever room we're going to deliver in. And so finally this midwife comes in, and to this day, I think about her all the time. She's an angel. I just feel like she was meant to be with me that night, and she was so incredible. But she checked me and she was like, you are 10 centimeters. You are complete. And it's funny because when we were walking into the hospital, I was telling Luke, I'm getting the epidural. I'm getting it. I'm getting the epidural.
You're just done. You were like, I'm done with these contractions.
Yes. And I didn't realize I was as far along as I was. Yes. So of course I'm like, this is intense. And I'm like telling him, I don't know if I can do it. And so to her, I was like, can I still get the epidural? And she's like, we'll see about that. But I think deep down, she's like, probs not. And so she's like, would you like to get in the bath? That will help. I mean, her energy was so calm. And she also just made me feel so strong, like I could do this.
Yes.
So the room was beautiful. I mean, like physiological birth, dream, it was amazing. And I just got so lucky that that's where I was going to give birth. I had never seen it before, but the tub was beautiful. Got in the tub and she was born quite fast. And I do remember one of my fears with birth was potentially tearing. And so I think when I first began pushing, I was nervous. And so, that for me was like a weird sensation. I was just like nervous to tear, nervous to push. And so, but I had such great support with Luke, my mom, and this midwife who, I mean, I wish I could reconnect with her, because when I say I think about her a lot, I literally think about her all the time, and just how her energy, it's crazy how you can just pick up on someone's energy.
My gosh. Amazing.
She was incredible. So she was like, give me all you got, like, you got this.
And she was the one delivering, not a doctor, like not an OB.
So a doctor did come in, like, as the baby was coming out. But basically her name was Anya. Anya did everything, and she was with me the whole time. And so I think it was very midwife focused, and doctors were more there for like
if they needed to be
or needed to be. So the doctor came in and was like, oh yeah, everything's good. Everything's fine. And I just remember like pulling Tatum, our daughter, up onto my chest and like had this overwhelming feeling. It like makes me emotional, but of like, we did it. And so I kept saying, we did it. And I couldn't believe it. Like I was almost in shock.
Yeah.
And Anya was so amazing. She turns to me and she's like, no, you did it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it gives me goosebumps to this day.
Yeah.
And I was just so grateful for that experience. And I think that was the first just time I realized like how empowering birth can truly be, and how I want that for everyone, because it's euphoric when you meet your baby. I was telling my friend who is going to give birth, I was like, when you meet your baby, there's nothing in this world like it. And it's such a sacred moment of life. And you only have so many experiences where like, you want to feel, like you had so much say in what happened, or, and I just felt in that moment, it was like putting a face to a feeling. Your whole pregnancy, you have this feeling of who's your baby going to be, and you almost get a sense of their personality in a way. And so finally, when you see their face, you're like, it all makes sense. And so I was so grateful that I had a positive birth experience that then influenced what my wishes were for our second baby.
Yes, I love that. I think, obviously you got so lucky with having that person put into your life at that time, it's just, but that's what God wanted for you. And he knew that like you needed it. And that's amazing that you were able to have that experience. I wanted to ask you, how long did you labor in the bath for? Like from when you started until you went to the hospital? Do you remember?
So I think like of course now it's been a few years, 4 years, but like we were not at the hospital long. So when we arrived at the hospital, obviously I was in the like waiting room for a while, just waiting to be checked. And I don't think they even realized how far along I was, because I was just like, sitting in a chair, and I wasn't really screaming, but more like moaning and just kind of focused inward, I guess. And so, I don't think they were like, oh, she's ready to go, but by the time we got to the hospital, she was born within 2 hours or less.
Okay.
And so, once I got in the tub, I was probably in the tub for maybe 45 minutes.
Okay. But you were in the bath at home, right? Before?
Yes.
Also,
I was in the bath.
You really liked the water.
Yes. For me, the water is like such a safe place, and it feels so good. And then the other thing I forgot to mention was I actually didn't tear at all. which was one of my fears going into the birth.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to kind of control my pushing, like no one ever told me when to push.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I was a little nervous in the process. I remember being like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing this right? You know, I don't want to tear. And I remember when she told me to like give it all I got, it was just such a great experience. And I was so thankful, and it happened really fast. And, but I loved being in the bath. And so that alone made me really want to be in the bath for all of my births. And
Yeah.
I really feel like the water, helped me not tear, and it just
Mm-hmm.
helped me, get
'Cause
comfortable.
you were able to relax so much in there, it seems.
Yeah, and it's kind of like been my constant, like when I'm in labor, I just like want to be in the water. And even for my second birth, while I was laboring a little bit at home, I was, in the bath and kind of taking like a bath shower, just like
Yeah.
prepping to go in. And it's just where I feel so relaxed.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I wanted to talk also, I know you mentioned a little bit about your, like, affirmations and stuff that you did with the
Yeah.
doula. Did you use those during your labor?
Um, I think I mentally was because, I remember there was one point, and one of them, there were so many, and I think visualization is just so powerful. And
Yeah.
when you, give yourself these positive affirmations of like, this is what I want, this is what my body can do, um,
Mhm.
it really translates to, what you're doing. And so
Yes.
one of the things the doula told me is like, the only way out is through. And
Mhm.
so I do remember thinking that, and that coming to mind while I was giving birth was like, I would be in the height of this, intense contraction, and it would, be, I kept saying to myself, like, the only way out is through. And every contraction is like pain with a purpose. That was another
Yes.
thing that she would say. And so I just kept saying, like, we're one step closer to our baby. And
Yeah.
my body, like, this pain has a reason. My body's doing it. Like right now, my body's bringing her to me. So
Yeah.
just that mental, focus was something that helped me get through the labor. And
Yeah, I
even
love
when I
that.
was giving birth, I remember asking Anya, the midwife, I was like, is there always a break? Because I lived for the breaks between contractions. Like
Yeah.
I needed them, and I would sink into them and just like find every ounce of like peace that I could before the next one. And I feel like,
Mhm.
um, it's so easy to be so tense in birth, like, because
Yes.
it's a lot. It's physically exhausting, mentally
Mhm.
exhausting, it's this huge moment. So I really try to remember to like take those breaks and use them and regain my strength to then, conquer the next surge.
Yes.
So
I love that. I love that, like, pain with a purpose. I've never heard that before, but that's amazing.
yeah,
Um
that was something that she said and stuck with me for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I think, like, even sometimes when I'm talking to my clients, we talk about prodromal labor because I just have so many
Yes,
clients that go through that, and
yes,
I try to say, like, yes, it's not it's they call it false labor. I don't like that because it is doing something, it is your body preparing to go through labor and preparing your body for what you're going to go through. So it's never like for nothing.
yes,
Same thing with contractions. So it's like, it's your body's doing something with every single contraction you feel, whether it's prodromal labor or true labor, So I love that. Okay. So, a last thing actually, before we move on to your second. So you had prenatal care in Spain and then
yes.
right? And then the
And then
US
the
and
US.
then Germany. So what can you
Yes.
talk a little bit just about the differences between those places?
Yeah, well, Spain, it was pretty quick. So we basically just had one appointment in Spain, and then, Luke needed surgery, and so we waited then till the US. And I now looking back, I chose to go to an OBGYN, and,
Mhm.
it was actually like a 2-hour drive from where I lived. So
Wow.
whenever I
Okay.
had an appointment, I would drive, but I just felt, I knew her, I felt secure with her,
Mhm.
and she's incredible. Um, it's definitely more medical than like the appointments in, Germany.
Mhm.
And just, you know, even just being around like the hospital setting, um, I just feel like I learned so much that summer about birth and, um, just what it can be and what, um, just kind of like about interventions, even just how like sometimes unnecessary interventions lead to more interventions. And so I kind of like saw that and it opened my eyes. So, but I had great care through the whole pregnancy and was really, really lucky. Like everything was amazing.
So let's go on and talk about your second pregnancy and, if there was any differences between the two that you can share with everyone.
Yeah. So with our son, I got pregnant in France this time and I was still sick, but I wasn't as sick. So now from my own bias, whenever anyone's super sick, I'm like, I think it's a girl. And if they're not as sick, I'm like, it might be a boy, because of my own experience. But we started in France, the pregnancy. And again, we had no idea where we were going to be come the fall because, we love to just roll the dice. So we were but I had like a confidence too that like women have been birthing for forever. And so it's like, I could do this in a field. Like,
doesn't matter where you are. Yeah.
And especially after having like one birth that went really well, I was like, okay, I know I can do this now. I have more confidence and it's not so new. And this time I kind of knew what I wanted. So like the first time it was more, I had what I hoped for.
Discovering things and
Exactly. And so my hopes were this time I was like, no, like this is what I want. And so anyways, we found out he was going to play near Paris for a team called Nanterre. And so I started immediately like doing research over the summer, like, okay, where can I give birth? And I came to find out that France has quite a high epidural rate. It's like one of the highest in Europe. I think it's even higher than the US. And that water birth is like not very common. And so of course I'm like, oh no, like I need to have a water birth. Like I don't know how to birth any other way. And so I started like just searching up anything. Like I would find someone who was on a podcast who lived in Paris, who talked about birth. And I would like literally reach out to them in an email. And I was like, hi, like I want to have a water birth. And there were some great places in Paris, but like the waiting list, there was like a waiting list, or it was going to be too far of a drive because in Paris, you can't just because it's in Paris, it could be like 2 hours away.
Yes.
So finally, someone told me there was a hospital in Nanterre where we lived, so it was close to us, that had one tub that they allowed people to birth in. And so I was just like, okay, this is the place. It has a tub. We're just going to hope and pray that tub is available when I go into labor.
Yes.
And I found there to be a little bit more of a language barrier this time. And I mean, I could speak a little bit of French, but definitely not fluent, or, conversations were not very, intense. It would be very basic, very simple.
Yeah.
And so I actually came across a doula who was Australian, and she lived in the area, and she was, she could speak French and English. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this would be so perfect because she can like translate for me and she can be my doula and support me. And COVID had happened. So this time, my mom, like they wouldn't let my mom be in the room, but my mom would be watching our daughter anyway at this point. So I thought this way they would allow this doula to be in the room with me and to have Luke as well, hopefully. So I was so excited when I found her, and in talking with her, I was, oh my gosh, she was amazing. It was like, instead of focusing on like the education side of things, she was like, what can I help you with? Like, what do you really need? And she was just incredible. And she was like, the birth you want. So we don't have to spend time like talking about every little detail about that, but I want to set you up for success. And so she actually set up like a postpartum meal delivery with organic, like nourishing foods for breastfeeding support. I mean, she was amazing. And so someone would like ride a bike to our house afterwards and deliver these foods in mason jars that were so good, so nourishing, and so comforting. So she was just awesome. And she would help me at some appointments with the translation of things. And she kind of said like, okay, yes, in France, it is more medical here. And so there's going to be some doctors that kind of say, okay, you want to have a water birth. All right, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But she was very supportive, and just, I love having another resource to talk birth with. Cause Luke loves to chat birth with me, but we can only talk for so long about it. He's like, do you have any girlfriends? Okay, yeah. But he's great. So he actually loves like the water birth. He was like, that was so cool. He loved it. So he knew what I wanted. And so anyways, we just further along the pregnancy, and I thought surely this baby's going to come before 40+6 when his sister came, because it's my second baby. Like, I just thought he's either going to come on that day or sooner. And the joke was on me because he was not coming out.
He was so comfortable.
Mama's boy. He's still a mama's boy. It's like, oh my gosh. But he did not want to come out. And pregnancy in France, they actually do 41 weeks. So similar, that's what they consider full term. So like, I knew they wouldn't probably be like, oh, let's induce. But I had been going to appointments with random OBGYNs. Like, I think I saw a few different ones. And at one of the scans, she was saying, yeah, your baby's big. Like, he's big. And I'm like, well, I have a big husband. Like, maybe he's just like a little big. And she's like, no, like, he's 99 percentile. Like, you need to like think about when you, if you might want to induce, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like, I really don't want to induce because I really am fearful, like, if I could handle it, and I really want to have a water birth again. And my doula was awesome. She's like, yeah, we're not even going to focus on that, because half the time the size is wrong. And she's like, your body literally is making this baby. And it's very, very rare for our bodies to make a baby that we cannot birth. Yes. Our bodies are just so in tune and so smart. And so that was some of a mindset like funk, because once I went past 40+6, I did have that doctor's voice in my head, like, the baby's big. And I'm like, okay, and now we're going quite far into the pregnancy. Like, he's only getting bigger. So
just so unfortunate that happens, because it's so common. Like, it's like almost every single person is like, yeah, the doctor said my baby's big. I'm like, is everyone's baby big? Like,
I'm like, well, you know what's funny? Big babies do run in my family. My mom had an 11-pound, 2-ounce baby. She had quite a traumatic birth with him, but she did deliver vaginally. And we were all, over 8 pounds. So we were all on the bigger side. So I was like, if like my mom's my inspiration, like she did it, maybe I'm made for this, So that was one thing. And then they also have a mandatory meeting, an appointment with an anesthesiologist. Okay. And I remember I was kind of like off put by him, because he had like almost just, I was like, yeah, well, I of course I'm going to go through with the appointment. I wasn't going to be like, no, I'm not going, but it was basically to prepare for if I was going to have an epidural, like he needed to, I don't know what he really did. I can't even remember, but he was like, oh, you want to do it in the bath. Okay. And he's like, I'll be there if you need me. And he almost had like an arrogance. I'm like, I am not going to need you. I can get this baby out on my own. I don't think I'm going to need you. So that was just a funny thing that happened. And then, we got to 41 weeks, and I was like, at this point, I want to try everything to get him out. So, we tried acupuncture. What else? We did, I was doing all the stretches, all the things, all the curb walking. And I actually even went in for 3 different membrane sweeps. Oh my gosh. And I was like, I just want him to come. Yeah. And so finally they said, and one of the membrane sweeps was actually quite painful. Okay. It was quite uncomfortable, but the other 2 were fine. So I never knew like why, but Anyways, one of the midwives who did the membrane sweep was very holistic, and she gave me this blend of essential oils that had like clary sage in it.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, rub this on your back, and tonight, like, see how you're doing. And so I really feel like that did help.
Okay.
It was probably a combination of all the things, and also just him finally being ready, like, okay, it's time. But this is sort of funny. So they asked if I wanted to be induced on the 18th. They said, we can induce you on the 18th. Or you can wait one more day till the 19th. But then, at this point it was getting further on. And so my dad was visiting, and I just felt my dad had to leave pretty soon. He's a pilot. So when he has to go to work, he has to go to work. And so he had been there waiting for the baby to be born. And I felt some pressure that was like, okay, maybe I should just go in on the 18th, be induced, because of other people's like timelines and just wanting to, like, I'm a people pleaser. So I'm like, I want you to meet the baby. Like, I don't want you to leave. And I remember reaching out to the doula who helped me this summer in America before I had Tatum. Yeah. And she had some amazing encouragement. She was just like, your baby knows when he's going to be born. Like, why don't you just give it one more day? Like, what's one more day going to do? Yeah. And it's so crazy because we would have been induced on the 19th, and I went into labor the night of the 18th. So it's like with both my babies, they just like needed an eviction notice or something. Because I'm like, as soon as I'm like talking about like, okay, we're going to kick you out, they're like, okay, we're coming now.
That's so funny.
So funny. And so, but it was awesome. I feel like the essential oils were helping me, or just, they smelled good. Like it was all good. And so again, I went into labor through the night. And I remember like getting in the bath and like taking a shower, getting in the bath and just laboring in there. And I knew finally he was coming, and I was so excited. But I was also like, okay, I remember that things happened quite fast with Tatum. So I also have heard for some people that the second birth can be speedier. And I was just like, I want to have an unmedicated birth, but preferably not in the car.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's get to the hospital a little sooner this time. And so we were driving to the hospital and, texting the doula, like, okay, it's time, meet you there. And she was just so incredible and so positive. She gave me such a good energy again, kind of like Anya. And so we met her there. And when we arrived, they told me that the room with the tub was taken. And I like panicked. I was like, oh, no. What? Like, I need to give birth in the tub, please. Like, and they're like, well, we're going to be cleaning it up soon. The mother already gave birth, but it's not ready yet. Yeah. And so I kind of went into a panic, and Luke is like, oh, what do we do? Like, she really wants to give birth in the tub. Like, he's, what do we do? And so I'm panicking, and my doula comes in and she's like, your labor is probably going to stall anyway, because you just went from the comfort of your home, dim lighting, somewhere you really feel comfortable, to now fluorescent lighting and a hospital setting, and you're kind of in panic mode anyway right now. So she was like, you're going to make it into the tub. Like, she just kept telling me, she's like, don't worry, you're going to make it. Yeah. And so this time when I arrived at the hospital, I was 6 centimeters dilated. They checked me right when I got there. And I don't think they checked me again. So it was more hands off, and it was all like midwives as well. Okay. And so my doula had actually brought like a TENS machine, a TENS unit. Mm-hmm. And it's so unique. And I honestly, she asked me if I wanted her to bring it. And I was like, doesn't hurt.
Really care.
Like, yeah. Yeah. And so in this moment where I'm waiting to go into the room where I want to deliver, it was really actually so nice, because, it's like a little electric machine. I'm sure but
yeah. I've had a few clients use them and really like them.
Yeah. So it was something totally different. And whenever I had a contraction, it would like stimulate the electricity, I guess. And so I did feel like it was a distraction which was nice.
Yeah.
And I was on like a bouncy, like a birthing ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I was just trying to like stay in the moment, but also just be like, you're going to get to the bath. Like everything's going to be fine. And my doula, it's just so nice to have like another support person because she was constantly like offering pressure on my back. Like she didn't feel like nervous, and Luke wouldn't either, but like he also doesn't want to come into my space when I'm in the zone or like in labor land, like doing my thing. But she would just like so confidently comfort me, and she would bring me drinks of water, which it was funny because after I gave birth, I saw this other doula talking about how like keeping your lips, like we so want to be so tense, like in that moment and like tighten and like grit your teeth, but like having a soft mouth really translates to
so important. Yeah.
Yeah. So even just her offering me those drinks of water, my mouth was soft when I'm drinking. So I was just like, oh, I see what you were doing there, caught you. But she was amazing. And she even like videoed some of the labor and birth for us, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And she had finally, they told us, okay, the tub is ready. Like you can go in the tub now. And she had set the room up with candles. It was so dim. At first it was like too dim. Like it was like dark. We're like, we can turn up the lights just a smidge, But I just remember like, it was such a relief for me to get in the water. I was just like, finally, like it just was such a comfort. And I think it's just also because it's what I knew. So it made me feel like, okay, now it's time.
Ready. Yeah.
And, so I remember like she tried a few different positions with me, but I honestly just felt most comfortable, like sitting kind of like almost not on my back, but just like relaxed in the tub. And I remember like, I think I was only in the tub for about 20 minutes before he was coming or before he even came out. So once I got in the tub, things happened so fast. And
your body,
I didn't even,
okay, I'm ready. I'm relaxed now.
Yes, it was like, she was so right because, in those moments where I was waiting for the room, like I didn't feel a need to push or anything. As soon as I got in the tub, I just knew I was in transition. Like I just knew.
Yeah.
And so, without even like saying it or telling anyone, or I don't even think a midwife delivered my baby here. I don't think she was even in the room, but I just started pushing because I just felt like I needed to push. And I just remember like her kind of like rushing into the room, like getting ready, and everything just happened so fast. But in contrast to my first birth, I remember feeling like pushing felt like a relief. Like I was like glad to push. And I think the first birth, it was because I didn't know what to expect. But this time I knew like if I pushed this baby out, I could hold my baby. Like I couldn't wait to meet him. And so I was like starting to push, and they were like, oh my gosh, it's like she's pushing. And I remember the midwife say, your baby's coming now. And that was so motivating. And like Luke to this day, he's like, it felt like you pushed him out in one push because he just so suddenly came out. And you know how people talk about like their bodies just like instinctively pushing? Like honestly, I felt like that. Like it was almost like a reflex.
Yeah.
And this time I loved the pushing. So it's just so funny how two births can be different in that way. Yeah. I had no fear. I was just like, okay, let's go. And it felt like what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And so he came out, was magical, of course, like there's nothing like that moment. And especially like you're just so proud of yourself. And it's just like the most magical thing. And I can still like feel, for being quite overdue, not overdue, but he was born at 41 plus 4. He had quite a lot of vernix. And I just remember like laying in the tub, feeling just like on top of the world. And his head was like against my like mouth almost. And I just remember like feeling him there. And I just like, it's like burned in my memory. and it was magical. And we were
Love
just,
that.
yes, the
That's
tears were
amazing.
flowing. Yeah, it was amazing.
I love that. So I'm curious, like, we didn't really talk about postpartum at all with your first.
Yeah.
If there was a difference in the care that you received postpartum in Germany versus France, because I've worked with clients that have given birth in different countries, and everyone kind of has a different experience with that. So I was just curious if you had, different experience in the two countries.
Yeah. So in Germany, when I think one thing I didn't expect or anticipate was just how hard nursing could be, breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And so I don't think my daughter was latching, but like I don't think she had a good latch, but I would like nurse and nurse and nurse and nurse. And
Yeah.
so it was super painful. And
Okay.
I had to like stop nursing at one point to kind of let my nipples heal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had used like pumped milk. And I think I just didn't understand how it all worked at that time
Yeah.
because, it was just like first time mom. And so I'm like pumping a ton. And then I remember like trying to go back to nursing, but having like an oversupply because I had pumped so much. And when I had this painful nipples and, trouble latching, they did send midwives to the house, which was incredible.
Yeah.
And a lot of the weight, all the weight checks for her was done at
At
home.
home.
So that
Yeah.
was so nice. I mean, you don't even have to leave. And
Yeah.
so that was like a really nice experience. And then with Ford, everything ended up being fine with Tatum, and we got to a good place with nursing. They set me up with a lactation consultant that I would go see, and she was incredible. And I was so determined because it's something that I wanted so badly. And so, it took some time, but we got to a really good place and ended up having a nice postpartum with her. Once that pain, it took like a few weeks, but once the pain was gone with nursing, I felt much, much better. And then with Ford, I actually got mastitis twice, which was difficult. And like, oh, it's just so hard. It's like the worst feeling. You just
Yes.
want to like feed your baby and be there and be present. And you're just like so sick.
Yeah.
So that was hard back to back. And it was kind of mentally like draining. But once we overcame that, everything was good. And now he's still nursing. So
Amazing.
yeah, he's 2 years old. He turned 2 in November 19th. And yeah, so I don't even know how we're going to stop nursing. So at one point I was
No,
like,
it's
I'm
so
worried if I'm going
hard.
to be able to nurse because of the mastitis and just like feeling so sick. And I thought, what if this ends our nursing journey? And nope, we're still going strong. So yeah, it was good. The postpartum care there was good too. They did send someone to the house who I loved. She was awesome. She was actually from Germany, oddly enough.
Yeah.
She was like doing the postpartum checks and checking on me. And she was the one who once told me like, you need to go to the hospital because my mastitis was like so
So
bad.
bad.
But it was hard because in America, I feel like if you have mastitis, you can get an antibiotic pretty quickly, but it took like a lot of appointments going to the hospital and, just a lot of added fuss to like get what I needed.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit hard in in France.
Yeah.
And of course, like Luke's at basketball practice and my mom's with my daughter. And so I'm taking like my newborn to the hospital sick, it's just like one of those things where it may have been easier in the States, but overall, my care was amazing in Europe. And I'm so grateful I gave birth overseas.
Yeah. I always hear like, and when we delivered our first in Barcelona, and, the contrast between giving birth over here in Europe versus the States is like the biggest thing that stands out to me is the postpartum care because they send people to you. And like, I don't understand how we don't do that in the US right now because
Exactly.
you're in this, like, you just gave birth, your hormones are crazy. You're trying to like figure out breastfeeding and if you have another kid on top of it, then it's like a whole other thing. And I think it's amazing that they do that here because it was such a like a stress relief for me that I didn't have to worry about like going into the hospital and like I'm bleeding. I'm just I'm not comfortable. Like I'm like, I want to just be at home with my baby.
That's such a good point. I totally agree.
So I love that they do that here. I thought that was so cool. And I didn't know until I delivered here that that they did that. And I was like, what do you mean you come to my house? Like what? But it was so cool. Yeah. Anyways, I'm so thankful that you were able to come on and share, because I really think that, you can say, okay, like I even said, I think when we were chatting, like, oh, you were so lucky that you ended up with this midwife. But honestly, like you also did so much work to get the births that you wanted, and obviously birth's so unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And, maybe it would have gone differently. Like you just never know, but you really put yourself in that situation where it could go the way you wanted it to go, like, I think that's so incredible, because I think I think people settle sometimes, and I think they don't realize that they have options and that they're able to, go somewhere else. Like I always say to my clients, if you're not happy with your doctor, it doesn't matter if you're 37 weeks, go get a new doctor, like let's find someone that supports you and is on board with what you want, because you never want to go into birth feeling like everyone's against you, or no one's in your corner. And I think it's so cool, like you built a team around you. You knew that like you needed that support and you were able to find it. And even not knowing where you were going to be, like your situation isn't easy, but you knew what you wanted and you went and figured it out. Like I think that's so incredible and so cool for people to hear that you have options and you can go find people that are going to be supportive of what you want. So
yes, I was so grateful after the second experience, because the first one felt like fate, like getting to have this hospital experience and have this amazing midwife. But it felt like with my second birth, like even though that may have not been the norm in France to have a water birth or to have an unmedicated birth, I felt like it was like my own agency of like, this is what I want. And just doing some research. And it's just crazy how when you learn or you empower yourself, like when you can make choices. And like, I think that was such a lesson. And from my own births, I feel like it's the most transformative and empowering thing I've ever done. And so I hope that other women can feel that same way about their births. And, if they want a certain birth, to like find, research or find someone or, just find what's available to you and make the best choice that you want. So.
Oh, I love that so much. And you're going to be such an incredible doula whenever you decide to do that. Like you really are.
You're my inspiration.
Oh my gosh. Like I love how passionate you are about it. And you really it seems like you just truly love it. And I love that. I think we need more of that. We need more people that are going to go support women, because I think it's so sad for me to see people feel like, they're on their own in this and going into birth and postpartum and being a new mom and, having that support and feeling empowered, exactly what you said, like just feeling confident in themselves because they, like you said, like people are giving birth all over the world. Like we can do this, we just need the right support. So
that's so true. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting with me today. I'm so excited for everyone to hear your stories and hear your passion for all of this. So I think it'll be super educational for everyone.
Yes. As you can see, I could talk birth for hours. So I love it. And I hope anyone listening, if you're preparing to give birth, just believe in yourself, positive affirmations, and you got this. It's amazing. There's nothing like it.
Love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.